Do you hear it? The echoes of the past, the whispers of forgotten truths, fragments of memories lost in the shadows. Welcome to Brainrot, Echoes, where we bring you stories long buried, unravel mysteries cloaked by time, and guide you through the darkest corners of the mind and the universe. Each video is more than just content. It's an echo resonating deep within, urging you to question, to wonder, to explore. Backend index pointing right, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and join us in listening to the echoes the world tried to silence. A question of civility. You know what really grinds my gears about humans? Admiral Kazit clicked his mandibles in frustration. They don't even have the decency to lose properly. Commander Verum's eye stalks swiveled towards his superior. Sir, with all due respect, they've lost 7 consecutive battles. Their orbital defenses are in ruins. Their military infrastructure is crippled. What more could you possibly want? The Admiral's carapace flushed a deep purple of irritation as he gestured at the holographic display showing Earth's final transmission. I want them to stop sending messages like this. The message, broadcast on all frequencies and translated into the standard galactic language, hung in the air between them. Stop attacking, or we stop pretending to be civilized. What does it even mean? Kazit chittered. Is it a threat? A joke? Some bizarre cultural reference? We've conquered 18 species across 12 star systems, and not one of them has ever responded to imminent defeat with whatever this is. Perhaps it's just desperate, Verum suggested. Their global communications network is still partially functional. This could be some rogue element trying to save face. Admiral Kazit flicked his antenna dismissively. Our intelligence reports indicate the message came directly from their United Earth Defense Council. This was an official, coordinated response. So we responded to it? Verum asked hesitantly. Absolutely not. We continue as planned. Deploy the 9th wave to eliminate their remaining ground defenses. I want boots on the surface within 36 hours. Yes, Commander. Protocol Omega. General Elena Blackwood surveyed the ruins of what had once been UEDC headquarters in Geneva. The Cravage bombardment had reduced most of the complex to rubble, but the emergency bunker was intact, and that was all that mattered. Status report, she barked, not looking up from the tactical display. Colonel Dmitry Volkov's voice was steady despite the circumstances. The message was successfully transmitted on all available channels. General. Our remaining quantum entanglement communicators confirmed it reached at least 73% of their fleet. Good, Blackwood nodded. And the response? Nothing yet. They've continued orbital bombardment of military targets in Asia and North America. So they've chosen option B, Blackwood said with a grim smile. Excellent. Volkov shifted uncomfortably. With respect, General, I still think we should have tried a more conventional approach. A peace offering, or... We tried peace offerings 3 weeks ago, Blackwood interrupted. We tried surrender terms 2 weeks ago. We tried targeted counterattacks last week. None of it worked. These bugs don't understand how we think, and frankly, we've been playing by their rulebook too long. But Protocol Omega, it's our last resort. Yes, but in case you haven't noticed, Colonel, she gestured to the devastation visible on the security feeds. We've reached last resort territory. The civilian casualties will be... There won't be any civilians left if we don't act, Blackwood said sharply. The Cravage don't distinguish between military and civilian targets once they establish ground control. We've seen the footage from their previous conquests. But using Project Lazarus, it goes against everything we've been pretending to be, Blackwood corrected. Humanity has been playing nice for centuries, Colonel. We've been good little galactic citizens. We've followed the rules of war. And where has it gotten us? On the brink of extinction. She tapped a sequence on her command pad, bringing up a new display. Do you know why we called it Project Lazarus, Colonel? Volkov swallowed hard. Because it brings back the dead? Blackwood's laugh was hollow. No, because it brings back what we buried. What we try to kill in ourselves. She looked up, her eyes hard. Initiate Protocol Omega. Authorization, Blackwood Tango, Sierra 9-1. Yes, General, Volkov said quietly. He moved to the central console and began the activation sequence. Blackwood turned back to the tactical display, watching as new data began to flow in. Time to remind the galaxy who we really are. The Phoenix rises. Fleet Commander Dizrock was reviewing the latest bombardment reports when the alert came through. "Commander," his sensor officer called, voice pitch high with alarm. "We're detecting unusual energy signatures from the planet's surface." "What kind of signatures?" Dizrock demanded, moving to the sensor station. "Unknown, sir. They don't match any weapons profiles in our database. They're emanating from everywhere." "Everywhere? That's impossible." "No, sir. I mean literally everywhere. We're detecting these energy spikes from every continent, every ocean, even the polar regions." Dizrock's mandibles clicked nervously. "Put on the main display." The holographic projection of Earth appeared, then began to light up with thousands, no, millions of tiny points of light. They pulsed in unison, creating a web-like pattern that encompassed the entire planet. "What in the seven moons?" Dizrock asserted. His communications officer interrupted. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the surface." On screen, the image shifted to show a human female in what appeared to be a military uniform, though it was different from the United Earth defense standards they'd observed before. The uniform was black, unmarked except for a single insignia, a stylized phoenix rising from flames. "This is General Elena Blackwood of Earth's Lazarus Protocol," the human said, her voice unervingly calm. "We warned you." "Warned us?" Dizrock couldn't help but respond. "Your message was cryptic nonsense." The human's lips curled upward in what their intelligence briefings had identified as a smile, though this version contained none of the warmth the expression supposedly conveyed. "Then allow me to clarify," she said. "For the past 3 centuries, humanity has been restraining itself, playing by galactic rules, acting civilized. That ends today. Your threats are meaningless," Dizrock countered. "Your military capabilities are crippled. Your orbital defenses are destroyed. Your defeat is inevitable." "You're absolutely right about one thing," Blackwood replied. "Our military is crippled. If you're talking about the military we've been showing you." A new data feed appeared beside her image, technical specifications and deployment statistics that made no sense to Dizrock. "You see, Commander, humanity's history is complicated. We spent millennia trying to kill each other before we finally united. When we did, we made a decision to bury our most dangerous technologies and approaches to warfare, to become civilized by galactic standards. We created the United Earth Defense Council to oversee our military development along acceptable ethical lines." Dizrock clicked impatiently. And we created Protocol Omega as insurance. A distributed, hidden network of weapons platforms, research facilities, and personnel dedicated to maintaining and advancing the technologies we officially abandoned. Technologies that even our own citizens don't know exist. As if on cue, the sensor officer called out again. "Sir, the energy readings are intensifying. They're interfacing with our systems somehow." "That's impossible," Dizrock snapped. "Our security protocols are based on technology we shared with the galactic community. Technology we deliberately held back from upgrading because we knew this day might come," Blackwood interrupted. Across the command deck, consoles began to flicker and fail. The ship's lights dimmed, then stabilized at half power. "What have you done?" Dizrock demanded, genuine fear creeping into his voice for the first time. "We've activated a subspace resonance field that selectively targets your neural networks, both biological and synthetic," Blackwood explained as if discussing the weather. "Right now, it's just disrupting your ship systems, but with a slight adjustment, it could target your central nervous systems instead." That's barbaric." "No, Blackwood corrective. It's pragmatic. You left us no choice." Before Dizrock could respond, his tactical officer called out in panic. "Sir, we're detecting mass teleportation signatures throughout the fleet. Something is boarding our vessels." The Hidden Army. Lieutenant Marcus Davies materialized in the corridor of a Cravage destroyer, his Lazarus Protocol combat armor whirring softly as its systems synchronized with a neural interface in his brain. The suit was a technological marvel, systems that would have been considered too aggressive by galactic community standards, a blend of advanced exoskeleton, neural enhancement, and integrated weaponry that effectively turned its wearer into a walking tank. But the real violation of galactic conventions was the teleportation system itself. Most spacefaring civilizations had abandoned the technology centuries ago after the Telosian incident, where a teleportation accident had wiped out an entire species. Humanity had officially done the same, while secretly perfecting it under Protocol Omega. Lazarus Team Alpha in position. Davies subvocalized the neural link, transmitting his words directly to the command network. No contact copy yet. Alpha came the response in his mind. Beta through Echo Teams report successful insertion. Primary objectives: secure engine rooms, command bridges, and weapons control. Secondary objective: gather intel. Lethal force authorized, but prisoners are preferred when possible. Understood. Alpha moving out. Davies signaled to his 5-person team, and they moved silently through the alien vessel, their armor's adaptive blending with the organic metallic walls of the Cravage ship. Their helmet displays highlighted optimal routes and potential threats based on real-time data being gathered by the millions of nanodrones they'd released upon arrival. Contact 30 meters ahead, his second-in-command, Lieutenant Jen, reported. 4 hostiles. Standard security configuration. Davies nodded. Non-lethal takedown. We need intel. The team split into practice formation. Davies and Jen would approach from the front as a distraction, while the other 3 members circled around through adjacent corridors to flank the Cravage security team. As they rounded the corner, Davies couldn't help but feel a twinge of satisfaction at the mandible-dropping shock on the lead Cravage guard's face. The aliens had clearly never expected to see humans on their ship, much less ones encased in armor that made them look like something out of the sci-fi entertainment vids that had been popular before the invasion. "Hello there," Davies said casually, the suit's translator converting his words to the clicking, chittering language of the Cravage. "Lovely ship you've got. Mind if we borrow it?" The guards raised their weapons, but it was already too late. Targeted electromagnetic pulses from Jen's armor disabled their guns before they could fire, and the rest of the team struck from behind with precision stun batons, another uncivilized technology that humanity had officially abandoned but secretly refined. Within all, for guards were unconsciously bound them and prep for interrogation, Davies ordered. "Jen with me. Let's get to the engine room." As they moved through the ship, encountering and neutralizing resistance along the way, Davies couldn't help but reflect on the irony of the situation. 3 weeks ago, he'd been a professor of xenolinguistics at Oxford University, with no idea that Protocol Omega even existed. Then the Cravage had attacked without warning, and he'd received the activation code that had been buried in his military discharge papers years earlier. Every Lazarus operative had a cover identity. In normal life, they led until called upon. Some were teachers, others engineers, doctors, or artists. All had military backgrounds, carefully selected psychological profiles, and specialized training they received during sabbaticals or extended vacations. It was an elaborate deception, maintained across generations. A hidden army of humanity's most effective warriors, equipped with humanity's most dangerous technologies, waiting for the day when playing by the rules no longer worked. That day had come. The tables turned. Admiral Kazit stared at the reports flooding in with mounting horror. Nearly 40% of the invasion fleet had gone silent in the past hour. The ships that were still responding reported being boarded by humans using impossible technology, teleportation, adaptive armor, weapons that seemed to target Cravage physiology with terrifying exact. "How?" he shouted, to no one in particular. "How could they have hidden this capability?" Commander Verome, who had been coordinating what passed for a defense against this unexpected assault, turned all 4 eye stalks towards the Admiral. "Sir, I've been analyzing the data. It appears the humans have been deceiving us." "Deceiving everyone," Kazit explained. When humanity joined the galactic community, they presented themselves as a young, technologically developing species. They accepted our guidance, integrated our standardized technologies, and followed community protocols. But according to what we're seeing now, they were lying through their teeth. Kazit finished. They were far more advanced than they let on. Yes, sir. And not just technologically advanced, tactically sophisticated as well. The boarding parties are operating with incredible efficiency, using strategies we've never encountered before. But why the deception? Before Verum could answer, the command deck's doors hissed open. Both Cravage officers turned, expecting to see security personnel. Instead, 5 humans in black armor entered, weapons trained on them. "Hello, Admiral," said the lead human, his helmet retracting to reveal a face with dark skin and a close-cropped beard. "I am Lieutenant Marcus Davies. I'll be handling your surrender today." Surrender? Kazit clicked his mandibles in what passed for laughter among his kind. "You may have surprised us, human, but this fleet still has enough firepower to reduce your planet to ash." "Had," Davies corrected. "Past tense. We've taken control of your weapons systems across the fleet. And just to be clear, we didn't come here to negotiate." With a gesture, Davies activated the holographic display in the center of the command deck. It showed hundreds of Cravage ships, color-coded by status. Over half were now highlighted in human control blue. "But how?" Kazit demanded. "That's a fascinating question," Davies replied, perching casually on the edge of the command console. "One I'll be happy to answer, since you're going to be our guest for the foreseeable future." A new message for the galaxy. Back in the bunker beneath Geneva, General Blackwood watched the holographic display with grim satisfaction. Protocol Omega had exceeded even her expectations. Within 3 hours, they had secured control of 82% of the Cravage fleet. The remaining vessels were either disabled or attempting to retreat. Message from Lieutenant Davies, General, Colonel Volkov reported. "Admiral Kazit has been secured. They're transferring him to the containment facility in Antarctica now." "Excellent," Blackwood nodded. "And the data retrieval complete?" "We've downloaded their entire command network. Our AI systems are analyzing it now, but preliminary findings suggest the Cravage were operating under orders from the Galactic Security Council." Blackwood's expression hardened. "So, our suspicions were correct. This wasn't a rogue action. It was sanctioned." "It appears so. According to the data, we were classified as a potential destabilizing influence after their deep space monitoring detected some of our Lazarus Protocol test sites. They saw a fraction of our capabilities and decided to eliminate us before we could reveal ourselves fully." Blackwood said thoughtfully, "Not entirely irrational from their perspective. Misguided, but not irrational." "What now, General?" Volkov asked. "We've repelled the invasion, but the rest of the galactic community will respond when they learn what happened." "Oh, they'll respond all right," Blackwood smiled, "but not in the way you might think." The holographic display shifted to show Davies, now on the bridge of what appeared to be the Cravage flagship. "Ready on your command, General," he reported. "Initiate Phase 2, Blackwood ordered. "Let's send our message to the entire galactic community." The Council reconsiders. In the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Security Council on Centauri Prime, representatives from the 23 most powerful species in the known universe were engaged in heated debate about the ongoing Cravage operation against Earth. "The humans must be completely subdued," insisted Delegate Hezel of the Furion Conclave. "Our deep space monitoring detected quantum signatures consistent with prohibition. If they master those sciences, they could pose an existential threat." "I still say this action was prematurely counterproductive," debated Delegate Olo of the Tenteran Republic. "We had no direct evidence of hostile intent. The Cravage campaign was authorized based on theoretical projections and historical analysis of human behavior pre-unification. The projections were clear." Hezel chittered. "Left unchecked, humanity would develop into a destabilizing force within 50 standard years. Their psychological profiles indicate a propensity for—" The delegate's words were cut off as every screen and holographic display in the chamber suddenly activated simultaneously. The image that appeared caused immediate uproar. A human female in an unfamiliar black uniform, seated in what appeared to be a command center. Greetings, esteemed delegates of the Galactic Security Council, the human said. I am General Elena Blackwood of Earth. I apologize for interrupting your session, but I believe you've been discussing us, so it seemed only fair that we join the conversation. How is this possible? Hessel demanded. This chamber is protected by the most advanced security systems in the galaxy. About those systems, Blackwood said, her tone almost conversational, they're quite impressive. Or rather, they would be if we hadn't designed the quantum entanglement protocols they're based on. Stunned silence fell across the chamber. Yes, that's right, Blackwood continued. When humanity joined the galactic community, we shared certain technologies. Technologies we had developed centuries earlier, but presented as recent innovations. You adopted them eagerly, standardized them, and built your infrastructure around them. Never once questioned why we would so freely give away such valuable intellectual property. What is the meaning of this intrusion? Demanded the council chairperson, a muron whose gelatinous form pulsed with agitation. The meaning is simple, Chairperson, Blackwood replied. You authorized an unprovoked attack on my planet based on fears of what we might become. I'm here to inform you that your fears were understated. With a gesture, Blackwood expanded the display to show multiple feeds. Craven ships under human control, advanced weaponry beyond anything the Council had seen before, and the captured Admiral Kazet himself, looking decidedly unhappy in his containment cell. The invasion fleet you sent has been neutralized, Blackwood stated matter-of-factly. Admiral Kazet and his senior officers are now our guests. We have downloaded their entire command network and are fully aware that this attack was authorized by this council. This is an outrage. Hessel chittered. The Cravage operation was illegal under Article 7 of the Galactic Charter, which prohibits preemptive military action against member worlds without evidence of imminent threat. Blackwood interrupted. Yes, we're quite familiar with the Charter. One we assumed at face value. She leaned forward, her expression hardening. For 3 centuries, humanity has maintained a facade. We have pretended to be less advanced, less capable, and far less dangerous than we truly are. We have followed your rules, accepted your guidance, and consolidated into your community. And how have we been repaid? With betrayal and attempted. Blackwood paused, letting the accusation hang in the air before continuing. The technologies you've seen today, teleportation, neural interfaces, quantum manipulation, represent a fraction of what we've developed. We kept these advances hidden not out of deception, but out of respect for the established order, out of a genuine desire to be good neighbors. If that were true, the chairperson countered, you would have revealed these capabilities when joining the community. And would you have welcomed us if we had? Blackwood asked. Or would you have considered us too dangerous to exist? Your actions against us now suggest the latter. She gestured again, and the display shifted to show Earth from orbit, the planet now surrounded by a shimmering energy field that hadn't been there before. This protective barrier is now in place around our system. It selectively allows or denies entry based on parameters we control. Consider it our new border security. You cannot isolate yourselves from the galactic community. Zerl protested. The economic and diplomatic consequences will be minimal, Blackwood interrupted. We've been self-sufficient for centuries. Our dependence on galactic trade was another part of our facade, a way to appear integrated while maintaining our independence. The council chamber erupted in overlapping protests and demands, which Blackwood allowed to continue for several moments before raising a surprising hand. The delegates fell silent. I'm not here to threaten you, she said, her tone softening slightly. Despite what you may believe about human nature, we don't seek conflict. We seek coexistence, but on equal terms, not as your subordinates or your potential victims. She straightened in her chair, her posture now formally. Effective immediately, Earth declares itself an independent system, no longer subject to Galactic Council oversight. We will defend our borders, but we have no territorial ambitions beyond our solar system. We will continue scientific and cultural exchange with any species that approaches us in good faith. and we will return the captured Cravage personnel and vessels once we've completed our analysis of their data. And if we don't accept these terms, the chairperson asked. Blackwood's expression remained neutral, but her eyes hardened. Then we stopped pretending to be civilized by your definition of a word. The Cravage fleet we captured? It's currently on its way to key strategic locations throughout Council space. Not as an invasion force, but as a demonstration. The display changed again, showing Cravage ships entering orbit around various home worlds of Council species. We have no desire for conquest or domination, Blackwood emphasized. But make no mistake, if provoked further, we will respond with the full measure of capabilities we've kept hidden. And trust me when I say, you've only seen the tip of the iceberg. The Council chamber fell into shocked silence. You have 24 standard hours to formalize recognition of Earth's independent status, Blackwood concluded. I suggest you use that time wisely. With that, the transmission ended, leaving the Galactic Security Council in disarray. The aftermath. Lieutenant Davies found General Blackwood in the observation dome of the Antarctic facility, staring up at the stars through the transparent ceiling. The aurora australis painted the sky in dancing greens and purples, a stark contrast to the clinical white of the facility itself. Mission accomplished, General, Davies reported. The captured ships have reached their designated positions. No resistance encountered. And our guest, Blackwood, asked without turning. Admiral Kazit is ready for your interview. He's been cooperative, especially after we showed him the footage from the Council chamber. Blackwood nodded, still gazing upward. The transmission was received by both the 347 member worlds as well as the independent systems. The response has been varied, but the prevailing sentiment is shock, followed by pragmatic recalculation. No calls for immediate military action. None yet. The Council is an emergency session, but our intelligence suggests they're leaning toward accepting our terms. The demonstration was persuasive. Davies moved to stand beside her, following her gaze to the stars. Was it always going to end this way? He asked quietly. When humanity first went to the stars, did we always plan to reveal ourselves like this? Blackwood sighed. Protocol Omega was established as insurance, not as a plan. The hope was that we'd never need to use it, that we could gradually integrate our advanced technologies into the galactic mainstream without triggering the very fearful response we've just witnessed. But you were prepared for this outcome. I was prepared for all outcomes, Blackwood corrected. That's the job. She turned to face him for the first time, and Davies was struck by the weariness in her eyes, a stark contrast to the confident, almost intimidating figure she'd presented to the Council. The universe isn't kind to species that can't defend themselves. Humanity learned that lesson through millennia of our own brutal history. When we united and looked to the stars, we hoped to find something better. And in many ways, we did. The galactic community has brought peace and prosperity to countless worlds. But underneath that veneer of civilization, the same old fears and power dynamics persist. The strong still dictate terms to the weak. The established still resist the emerging. We just happen to be on the other side of the equation this time. Davies nodded thoughtfully. And now, we negotiate from a position of strength rather than perceived weakness. We establish new diplomatic relations. We gradually, carefully share some of our advancements, the beneficial ones, the ones that can improve lives across the galaxy without destabilizing the power balance. And Protocol Omega remains active, but recedes into the background again, Blackwood said firmly. We didn't reveal all our capabilities today, not by a long shot. Some secrets should remain secret. She gestured towards the door. Come on, let's go talk to our guest. I think Admiral Kazit will play an important role in what comes next. A new beginning. Admiral Kazit was pacing in his holding cell when Blackwood and Davies arrived. The cell was comfortable by any standards, more like high-security guest quarters than a prison, but the force field at the entrance made its purpose clear enough. Admiral, Blackwood greeted him. I trust you've been treated well. Kazit's mandibles clicked in what Davies recognized as the Cravage equivalent of a humorless laugh. Quite well, General. Your hospitality is almost as surprising as your military capabilities. Blackwood nodded to the guard, who deactivated the force field. She stepped through, followed by Davies, and the field reactivated behind them. "Please sit." Blackwood gestured to the seating area. Once they were all settled, she continued, "I'll be direct, Admiral. Your failed mission, the Council's attempt to eliminate us, has backfired spectacularly. The question now is what happens next?" Kazit's compound eyes studied her carefully. "You've made your position clear to the Council. I assume my fate depends on their response." "Not entirely," Blackwood replied. "You were following orders, acting within your understanding of galactic security protocols. There's no personal animosity here." "How magnanimous," Kazit clicked, clearly surprised. "I confess, this matches nothing in our psychological profiles of humans." "Those profiles were based on our public face," Blackwood explained. "The face we chose to present. Like all intelligent species, we contain multitudes." "Clearly," Kazit agreed. "But I still don't understand why you've brought me here. If not to gloat or threaten, then why?" "Because I have a proposal," Blackwood said. "One that could benefit both our species and maybe the wider galactic community." She activated a holographic display between them, showing a star map of the region around Earth and Kravage space. "Your species and ours have more in common than you might think. We're both adaptable, resilient, and protective of our interests. We both have histories marked by internal conflicts before achieving unification. And we both understand the value of strategic thinking." "You suggest an alliance?" Kazit's mandibles clicked rapidly in what Davies recognized as surprise. "After we tried to conquer your world? I suggest a reset," Blackwood corrected. "The Council manipulated your species into attacking ours based on their fears. But those fears were rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding of human intentions." "And what are human intentions, exactly?" Kazit asked. "To survive, to thrive, to explore and understand the universe, to preserve our autonomy without threatening others," Blackwood replied simply. "Not so different from your own, I imagine." Kazit was silent for a long moment, his compound eyes fixed on the star map. "The Council will not easily accept a human-Kravage alliance," he finally said. "Such a partnership would shift the balance of power significantly." "The balance of power has already shifted," Davies pointed out. "We've demonstrated capabilities that change the strategic calculation. The question is whether that change leads to further conflict or to a new equilibrium." "And you believe I can help achieve this equilibrium?" Kazit asked. "Ido," Blackwood nodded. "As the commander who led the attack on Earth, your perspective carries weight. If you return to your people with a message of cooperation rather than continued hostility, it creates a path forward that doesn't involve further military action." "And what would this cooperation entail?" "Initially, information exchange. Your analysts study our technology, our analysts study yours. We establish diplomatic relations, cultural exchange programs. Eventually, perhaps joint scientific initiatives. And military cooperation?" Kazit pressed. "That would depend on mutual trust, built over time," Blackwood replied honestly. "We're not looking to create a military bloc in opposition to the Council. We're looking to create a stable that benefits both our species while reassuring others that neither of us poses a threat." Kazit's antenna twitched thoughtfully. "An interesting proposal, General. But why should I trust that your sudden revelation of superior capabilities stops here? How do I know there aren't more surprises waiting?" Blackwood smiled slightly. "You don't. Just as we don't know what capabilities the Kravage might have hidden from the wider galaxy. Trust is built on uncertainty, Admiral. On choosing to move forward despite not having all the answers." The Admiral's carapace shifted colors slightly, a sign of deep consideration among his species. "I will need to consult with my government," he finally said. "Of course," Blackwood agreed. "We'll arrange secure communications. But before you do, there's something else you should see." She adjusted the holographic display, and a new image appeared. The aftermath of the Kravage attack on Earth, cities in ruin, landscapes scarred by orbital bombardment, refugee camps stretching to the horizon. "This is the reality we're dealing with, Admiral. Millions dead, billions displaced, damage that will take decades to repair. I show you this not to inspire guilt, but to ensure you understand what's at stake. The next conflict, if it comes, will be even worse for both sides. Kazit's color darkened, the Cravage equivalent of solemnity. I understand, General, and I will convey this reality to my government. War is sometimes necessary, but rarely desirable. On that, at least, we agree, Blackwood said, deactivating the display. Which gives me hope that we can agree on other things as well. The Prometheus Complex. 1 week later, the observation platform atop the newly rebuilt UEDC headquarters in Geneva offered a panoramic view of the city. Construction drones buzzed overhead, repairing damaged buildings and infrastructure with remarkable speed, one of many technologies that humanity had kept hidden but was now openly. Colonel Volkov joined General Blackwood at the railing, handing her a cup of coffee. The council vote is complete, he reported. Earth's independent status has been officially recognized by a margin of 18-5. Better than expected, Blackwood nodded. And the Cravage? Their high command has approved preliminary diplomatic talks, starting next month. Admiral Kazit will lead their delegation. Good. He's a reasonable being, once you get past the mandible clicking and territorial displays. Volkov smiled slightly. The Admiral said something similar about you, actually, though he referenced human stubbornness rather than mandible clicking. Blackwood laughed, a genuine sound that Volkov hadn't heard from her since before the invasion. Fair enough, she conceded. Something about public opinion? How are people adjusting to the revelations about Protocol Omega? Volkov's expression turned more serious. Mixed, as you'd expect. Relief that we survived the invasion, certainly. Pride in our capabilities. But also anger that such technologies were kept secret and concern about what this means for Earth's future. All reasonable reactions, Blackwood acknowledged. We've lived a lie for 3 centuries. It will take time for society to process that. Some are calling for your resignation, Volkov added, arguing that Protocol Omega represents an unacceptable breach of democratic governance. Also reasonable, Blackwood nodded. And once the immediate crisis is fully resolved, I'll likely step down. A military director is appropriate during conflict, but peace requires civilian leadership. Below them, the city was coming back to life. People filled the streets, shops were reopening, children played in parks that had been combat zones just days earlier. Humanity was resilient, if nothing else. What do you think happens next? Volkov asked, his gaze following hers to the recovering city below. Blackwood took a long sip of her coffee before answering. History suggests 3 possibilities, she said finally. First, despite our show of force, someone decides to test us anyway. The galactic community fractures, alliances form, and we end up in exactly the kind of large-scale conflict we hope to avoid. That seems counterproductive after what they've seen, Volkov noted. Fear makes species do counterproductive things, Blackwood shaved. I've allocated resources to maintain our defensive posture for exactly this reason. The second possibility, the galaxy adapts. Earth becomes a respected but slightly feared independent power. Trade resumes on more equitable terms. Cultural exchange deepens, scientific collaboration advances, with us gradually introducing some of our technologies to improve quality of life across species. Not utopia, but peaceful coexistence. And the third, Blackwood's expression turned contemplative. The most interesting one. Our revelation forces a fundamentalization of how the galactic community functions. If we've been hiding our capabilities, how many other species have done the same? The current power structure is built on incomplete information and mutual deception. That's not sustainable. You think other species will reveal hidden technologies? Some will. Others will develop new ones, now that they've seen it's possible to advance beyond community standards. The equilibrium has been premised. Change is inevitable. Volkov frowned. That sounds dangerously destabilizing. Change always is, Blackwood agreed. But it's also necessary. The system that led to an unprovoked attack on Earth was fundamentally flawed. Perhaps what comes next will be better. Their conversation was interrupted by a soft chime. Volkov checked his comm device. Lieutenant Davies has arrived with the Cravage Diplomat Advance Team, he reported. They're waiting in the conference room. Blackwood finished her coffee. Time to get to work, then. The conference room fell silent as Blackwood entered, flanked by Volkov and two other UDC officials. On the other side of the table sat Admiral Kazit, now wearing the official diplomatic regalia of the Cravage hegemony, along with three representatives from his species. Admiral Blackwood, Kazit greeted, inclining her head slightly. Or should I say, Diplomat Envoy Kazit? The Cravage's mandibles clicked in what humans were beginning to recognize as their version of a dry smile. The promotion was unexpected, I admit. It seems my failure has been reinterpreted as an opportunity. Failure often contains the seeds of progress, Blackwood offered. Thank you for returning to Earth under these different circumstances. The High Command was persuaded by your arguments, and by the reality of your capabilities, Kazit acknowledged. We are a pragmatic species. Adaptation is our strength. Something we have in common, Blackwood said, taking her seat. Shall we begin? For the next 3 hours, they outlined a framework for what would become known as the Earth-Cravage Accord. It was a remarkable document, not just for its content, but for how quickly and smoothly it came together. Both sides were motivated by a mix of pragmatism and genuine curiosity about the other. When they finally paused for a refreshment break, Blackwood found herself standing next to Kazit by the viewport overlooking Lake Geneva. Your world is beautiful, the Cravage envoy commented. I regret that my first experience of it was through targeting systems. We're resilient, Blackwood replied. The damage will heal. Your people as well? Blackwood considered this. Healing takes different forms. Physical reconstruction is already underway. Psychological recovery will take longer. Trust longer still. And trust is essential for what we're attempting to build, Kazit observed. Yes, which is why transparency is crucial moving forward, Blackwood agreed. The old approach, hiding capabilities, maintaining facades, led us to conflict. We need a new paradigm. Kazit's antenna twitched thoughtfully. The Cravage have a concept, Klur, difficult to translate exactly. It means strength revealed makes peace possible. An apt philosophy for our current situation, Blackwood nodded. There's a question my government sent me to ask, Kazit said, his tone shifting to something more formal. One that may determine the nature of our future relations. Ask it. Project Lazarus. Protocol Omega. These were defensive measures, activated in response to our attack. But what are your long-term intentions? With capabilities such as yours, expansion would be tempting. Blackwood turned to face the Cravage envoy directly. Humanity spent millennia expanding across our own world, often at the expense of other humans and countless species. We nearly destroyed ourselves in the process. When we finally united, we made a choice to focus our ambitions upward and outward, not in conquest, but in understanding. She gestured toward the stars, just becoming visible as dusk approaching. Our goal isn't territorial expansion, Admiral. It's exploration. The universe is vast beyond understanding. Why waste energy conquering when there's so much to learn? The Cravage studied her with all 4 of his eye stalks. A noble sentiment, General, but history suggests that capabilities eventually find expression. They already have, Blackwood said. The technologies we've kept hidden weren't developed for conquest. They were developed to transcend limitations of distance, of understanding, of physical form itself. We've been exploring the universe in ways the community hasn't imagined, without ever leaving our solar system. Kazit's color shifted to a shade Davies had identified as indicating surprise. You speak of dimensional exploration, consciousness transfer. Among other things, Blackwood acknowledged. Areas of research the community banned without fully understanding their potential, because the risks can be managed with proper protocols. Blackwood finished. Just as we've managed the risks of teleportation, which the community abandoned after a single disaster. This is not what my government anticipated, Kazit admitted. Then perhaps our first act of trust should be showing rather than telling, Blackwood suggested. Would your delegation be interested in a tour of one of our research facilities? Not a military installation, but a scientific one. Let us show you what humanity has really been working toward all these centuries. The Cravidge's carapace flushed with colors that cycled through uncertainty to curiosity. I would need to consult. Of course, Blackwood nodded. Take whatever time you need. Beyond the known. 3 days later, Admiral Kazet stood in the observation chamber of the Prometheus complex, located beneath the Olympus Mons on Mars. The facility had been hidden from the galactic community's orbital surveys by technology that bent light and other scanning frequencies around it, making it appear as natural terrain. This is unexpected, the Admiral admitted, watching as human scientists moved through the vast chamber below. They were interacting with what appeared to be portals of some kind, shimmering doorways that opened onto landscapes that couldn't possibly exist on Mars. What you're seeing is the culmination of 5 centuries of research, explained Dr. Layla Kapoor, the facility's director. These are dimensional apertures, gateways to parallel realities that exist alongside our own. The community banned such research after the Voltarian collapse, Kazet noted, though his tone held more fascination than accusation. The Voltarians attempted to create alternate dimensions, Dr. Kapoor corrected. We're simply connecting to ones that already exist. The difference is significant, both philosophically and practically. Indeed, Davies, who had been assigned as the Admiral's liaison, added, it's the difference between trying to build a new house while you're standing in it, versus finding a door to a house that's already built. Kazet's antenna twitched with interest as he observed a team of researchers return through one of the portals, carefully cataloging specimens and data they'd collected. And the purpose of this research? Knowledge, Dr. Kapoor said simply. Understanding the fundamental nature of reality. Discovering principles that could revolutionize everything from energy production to medicine. But not weapons? Kazet pressed. Dr. Kapoor's expression grew serious. Admiral, if we wanted weapons, we've had access to forces that could tear planets apart for over 2 centuries. We haven't used them because our goal isn't destruction or domination. She gestured to the chamber below. This facility represents humanity's true ambition, to push beyond conventional limitations, to understand the universe in all its complexity. The military technologies you encountered during your invasion were developed as protection for this work, not as ends in themselves. And yet you kept all of this hidden, Kazet observed. Because the community wasn't ready, Davies replied. Your reaction to just the hint of our capabilities proved that. Dr. Kapoor nodded. But now that circumstances have forced our hand, we have a choice. Retreat into isolation and secrecy, or something bolder. Sharing our discoveries with species who are willing to approach them with open minds. Starting with the Cravidge. Kazet clicked, his compound eyes fixed on the portals below. Why? Because, Blackwood said, entering the observation chamber, your species values adaptation and pragmatism. You understand survival imperatives. And you've just had a first-hand lesson in the dangers of following community dogma without question. A diplomatic way of saying we attacked you based on flawed intelligence and outdated prejudices, Kazet noted dryly. Exactly, Blackwood smiled. Which makes you ideal partners for what comes next. And what does come next, General? Kazet asked, turning all 4 eye stalks towards her. A new paradigm, Blackwood replied. One where knowledge is shared rather than hoarded or suppressed. Where exploration takes precedence over control. Where different evolutionary paths and perspectives are seen as assets rather than threats. An ambitious vision, Kazet acknowledged. Ambitious, yes, but necessary, Blackwood said firmly. The current system nearly led to our destruction, and would have eventually led to conflicts with other species as they developed beyond community constraints, as they inevitably will. She moved to stand beside the Admiral, both of them now looking out over the research chamber. We have an opportunity here, Admiral, not just to prevent further conflict between our species, but to chart a new course for interspecies relations throughout the galaxy. Kazet was silent for a long moment, his color shifting through various hues as he processed what he'd seen and heard. My government will want assurances, he finally said. Protocols, oversight mechanisms. Of course, Blackwood nodded. We're not suggesting blind trust. We're suggesting a collaborative framework that respects both our interests. And if the community objects, Kazit asked, they will see any independent alliance as a threat to their authority. Blackwood's expression hardened slightly. Then they will need to reconsider what authority is based on. Fear and suppression are poor foundations for lasting stability. The New Dawn. 6 months later, Galactic Security Council Headquarters, Centauri Prime. The emergency session of the Galactic Security Council had been in progress for nearly 14 standard hours, with no sign of resolution. The chamber, usually a model of orderly discourse, had devolved into factions barely maintaining diplomatic protocols. The Earth Cravage Scientific Cooperative represents a direct challenge to Council authority, insisted Delegate Hezel, whose once dominant Furion conclave had lost significant influence since the Earth incident. Their open research protocols undermine the very safety measures that have preserved galactic peace for millennia. And yet, countered the Tenteran representative, 7-member species have already applied to join the cooperative. Are we to sanction them all? Expel 1/3 of our membership? If necessary, yes. Zerl chittered. The humans have corrupted the Cravage with promises of forbidden knowledge. Now they seek to corrupt others. The danger cannot be overstated. The Muron chairperson's gelatinous form pulsed with the equivalent of a weary sigh. Perhaps we should hear directly from the subjects of our debate before making further judgments. At the chairperson's signal, the chamber's central platform activated, revealing holographic projections of General Blackwood and diplomat Envoy Kazit. General, Envoy, the chairperson acknowledged. The council has been discussing your initiative with some concerns. So we've heard, Blackwood replied calmly, though discuss seems a generous term for what appears to be happening in your chamber. You stand accused of undermining council authority and violating fundamental safety protocols. The chairperson continued, ignoring the jab. How do you respond? Kazit spoke first, his mandibles clicking cautiously. With respect, chairperson, the cooperative violates no provision of the Galactic Charter. We have established independent research agreements, as is our right as sovereign entities. The Council has no authority to prohibit such agreements. The research itself violates community standards. Hezel interjected. Community standards are guidelines, not laws, Blackwood pointed out, and they're established without full understanding of the technologies they restrict. We're offering a chance to revisit those standards based on new data and careful protocols. Data that your species actively concealed. Hezel accused. Yes, Blackwood admitted frankly. We concealed our capabilities because we understood how the community would react, exactly as you're reacting now, with fear rather than curiosity, with suppression rather than engagement. The chairperson's form rippled with irritation. This debate is unproductive. The council must decide whether the cooperative can be permitted to continue its work or whether sanctions are required. Before you vote, Blackwood said, her tone shifting to something more formal. I should inform you that representatives from 14 species, 7 current council members, and 7 independent systems are currently touring the Prometheus complex on Mars. What they're seeing there will likely influence their positions regardless of what this chamber decides today. The announcement sent shockwaves through the council. The chairperson's form pulsed rapidly, the Muron equivalent of alarm. You invited council members to your research facility without authorization. They requested the opportunity, and we granted it, Kazit corrected, as is their sovereign right. The cooperative operates on principles of transparency and informed consent, concepts this council might benefit from adopting. Before the chairperson could respond, alerts began sounding throughout the chamber. Council members' communication devices activated simultaneously, displaying messages from their respective governments. What is happening? The chairperson demanded. It appears, Blackwood said calmly, that the tour has concluded, and your representatives are sharing their observations. Over the next several minutes, the council chamber descended into barely controlled chaos. Species that had been staunchly opposed to the cooperative were now receiving instructions from their governments to moderate their positions. Others were being recalled entirely, to be replaced by representatives more aligned with the new political reality. This is manipulation, Hazel accused, even as his own communication device chimed with messages from the Furion Conclave. This is adaptation, Kazakh corrected. Something every successful species must master eventually. The chairperson, sensing the dramatic shift in the political landscape, made a pragmatic decision. This session is adjourned for 24 standard hours, they announced. We will reconvene after consulting with our respective governments. As the projections of Blackwood and Kazakh faded, the chairperson remained in the now emptying chamber, their gelatinous form undulating with what might have been concern, or perhaps, just maybe, a hint of curiosity. A new kind of civility. 1 year later, Earth, Geneva, UEDC headquarters. The observation platform that had once hosted a somber conversation between Blackwood and Volkov was now transformed into a reception area. Representatives from 28 species mingled under the evening sky, Earth's full moon casting a silver glow over the proceedings. Davies, now promoted to captain, found Blackwood at the railing, momentarily apart from the throng. Quite a turnout, he commented, joining her. The translators occasionally glitching over specialized technical terminology that hadn't existed in the shared lexicon until recently. Did you ever think we'd get here? Davies asked. When you activated Protocol Omega, did you imagine this outcome? Not exactly, Blackwood admitted. The survival scenario was most probable. The isolation scenario was prepared for. This, she gestured to the diverse gathering. This was the aspirational case. Speaking of aspirations, Davies said, the Civilian Oversight Committee is asking about your plans now that the transition is complete. Blackwood smiled slightly. They want to know if I'm finally stepping down. The term they used was transitioning to an advisory role, Davies corrected diplomatically. Tell them yes, Blackwood said. It's time. The crisis phase is over. The cooperative has its own momentum now. And frankly, I'm tired of being the face of humanity's great deception. Not deception, came a familiar chittering voice. Strategic revelation. They turned to find Admiral, now High Envoy, Kazakh approaching, his carapace adorned with the formal colors of both the Kravich hegemony and the cooperative, a diplomatic distinction. Blackwood, Kazakh clicked. But I appreciate the sentiment. The Muron chairperson has just arrived, Kazakh informed them. Their first official visit to Earth. A significant gesture. One that would have been unthinkable a year ago, Davies noted. Much was unthinkable a year ago, Kazakh mentioned, including the notion that the Kravich and humans would become allies after an attempted conquest. History often turns on such ironies. Our greatest challenges can become our greatest opportunities, if we're willing to see them as such, Blackwood said. Their conversation was interrupted as Dr. Kapoor came, accompanied by a delegation of scientists from various species. General, we're ready for the demonstration. If you're available, she said. Blackwood nodded. Of course. The group moved to the center of the platform, where a small device had been installed. Dr. Kapoor activated it, and a miniature dimensional aperture appeared, similar to those in the Prometheus complex, but on a much smaller scale. This is the first portable aperture generator, Dr. Kapoor explained to the assembled dignitaries who had gathered around, the climax of collaborative research between 7 cooperative species. It represents not just technological advancement, but a new approach to discovery itself. As the scientists began a detailed technical explanation, Blackwood found herself standing between Davies and Kazakh, slightly removed from the center of attention. You know what really grinds my gears about humans? Kazakh clicked quietly, echoing his words from that fateful day aboard his flagship. Blackwood raised an eyebrow. What's that? They don't even have the decency to be predictable, the Kravich said, his mandibles moving in what humans now recognized as their version of a wry smile. Just when you think you understand them, they surprise you again. That's not just humans, Davies pointed out. That's intelligent life in general. Always adapting, always evolving. Perhaps, Kazakh acknowledged, but humans seem particularly adept at it. "We've had practice," Blackwood said, her gaze moving from the demonstration to the stars above. "Lots and lots of practice." As the evening progressed, the gathering moved gradually indoors. Blackwood remained on the platform alone, watching the city lights below and the stars above. A year ago, those stars had seemed like distant points of light, behind an invisible barrier of community restrictions and humanity's own deception. Now, they represented possibilities, new understandings, new alliances, new frontiers. The door behind her slid open, and Colonel Volkov joined her at the railing. "The Muron chairperson is asking for you," he said. "Something about formalizing the council's new relationship with the cooperative." "I'll be there in a moment," Blackwood nodded. "They're also saying this will be your last official act as director before transitioning to civilian oversight," Volkov added. "How does that feel?" Blackwood considered the question, looking out over the city that had been rebuilt after near destruction. In many ways, it was a metaphor for humanity's journey, devastated, then reconstructed, but with the knowledge and resilience gained through crisis. "It feels right," she said finally. "We spent centuries hiding what we're capable of. Then we spent a year demonstrating it. Now it's time to move beyond capabilities and focus on possibilities." "And Protocol Omega?" Volkov asked quietly. "Remains in place," Blackwood said firmly. "Trust is building, but the universe is vast and full of unknowns. We'll maintain our insurance policy, just more transparently than before." Volkov nodded, understanding. "Ready to go in?" "Almost," Blackwood said, taking a final look at the night sky. "You know, for all our advanced technology, all our hidden capabilities, humanity's greatest strength has never been our weapons or our science." "What is it, then?" "Our ability to imagine something better than what exists," Blackwood replied, "and our stubborn determination to make that imagination real." She turned from the railing, straightening her uniform one last time. "Now I'm ready." Together they walked back into the headquarters, leaving the platform empty save for the soft glow of Earth's lights below and the distant stars above. No longer symbols of separation, but of connection, of possibility, of a future where understanding replaced fear and cooperation replaced conflict. A future that had begun with a simple, defiant message: stop attacking or we stop pretending to be civilized, but would continue with a much more profound one: start collaborating and we all become something greater.